the landing lesson. Today we will practice flying a visual approach pattern followed by the engine shutdown procedure. If you're having trouble hearing my instruction over the engine noise, turn down the world and in-cockpit sound sliders in the options menu. Take a moment to stabilize the aircraft and level flight. Set the throttle to about 30 inches of manifold pressure to keep the speed around 250 miles per hour. Follow the coastline as we fly northbound. Press the spacebar key when you are ready to begin. The Mustang is not equipped with any modern precision approach systems, such as ILS. This means landings are performed using a visual approach pattern. In this lesson, we'll use a standard military overhead pattern. An overhead pattern consists of the following basic elements. Entry into the pattern on the upwind leg, where the aircraft is flown along the runway parallel to the landing course. The crosswind leg, where the aircraft is turned 180 degrees to take the downwind leg, using the turn to bleed off any excess speed. The downwind leg, where the aircraft is flown along the runway in the opposite direction of the landing course and is prepared for landing. The base leg, where the aircraft is turned another 180 degrees while descending to take the final approach. The final approach, where the aircraft is flown down a steady glide path past the runway threshold to the touchdown point. I've included an image with the mission briefing showing an example of the overhead approach pattern. To open the briefing, press left Alt plus B. Press the space bar key to proceed. The lengths and altitudes of a pattern may vary. For this practice mission, we will assume a typical pattern of entry at 1,000 feet above ground level and holding that altitude on the upwind and downwind legs. Base leg, descending to 600 feet toward the final approach point. A normal 3-degree glide slope from the final approach point, starting at 600 feet of altitude and 2 nautical miles away from the runway. Press the space bar key to proceed. The airspeeds flown in the pattern depend on the aircraft. For the 51D, the pattern speed is no greater than 200 miles per hour, because the landing gear and flaps can only be lowered at speeds below 170 miles per hour. One of the advantages of the overhead pattern is that it allows you to bleed off any excess airspeed in the crosswind turn before settling down on the downwind leg and dropping the gear and flaps for final approach. Final approach is flown at 120 miles per hour, and touchdown speed is 90. Press the space bar key to proceed. Landing is one of the most difficult and dangerous elements of flying, especially in an airplane like the 51, where a powerful engine and large propeller in the nose of the aircraft pull a massive amount of torque. At low speeds, the aircraft is very sensitive to power changes, and it's easy to get into trouble by mishandling engine and aircraft controls, in particular at low altitudes when there's little time to react. Once we enter the pattern, be careful to avoid large throttle movements and handle the controls carefully to maintain controlled and stable flight. Press the space bar key to proceed. Before entering the pattern, set the engine RPM to 2,700. You should see the airfield ahead, a few miles east of the coast. You should also see a pattern of green gates arranged in the air to help guide you through the overhead pattern all the way down to the runway. The pattern entry gate is the large one, positioned 1,000 feet above the runway threshold. Take a heading for the entry gate, which will put you on the upwind leg over the runway, heading away from the coast. You're approaching the pattern. Level off at 1,000 feet and follow the gauge to fly the pattern. Good job entering the pattern. You are now on the upwind leg. Keep the power down and monitor your airspeed and altitude. The next leg will be the crosswind turn, taking you 180 degrees left to put you on the downwind leg. Use the turn to bleed off any excess speed so that you're below 200 mph on the downwind leg. You're now on the downwind leg. Maintain airspeed around 160 mph and altitude at 1,000 feet. Lower the landing gear by pressing G. Watch the landing gear warning lights panel to make sure you get the green light. Press the F key twice to set the flaps to 20 degrees down. The next gate will be the start of your base leg, leading you through a descending left-hand turn toward the final approach point. Control your airspeed to make sure it stays below 160 mph for final approach. You're now lining up for final approach. Press the F key 3 more times to lower the flaps all the way down. Maintain 120 mph on final. Minimize side slip and trim for a steady approach. If you find yourself getting into trouble, add a little power, then raise the gear and flaps to climb out and go around. Speed looks good. Keep it around 120 on final. As you approach the threshold, prepare to reduce power and flare the aircraft by gently pulling the stick back. You want a gentle touchdown at about 90 mph. Carefully reduce power and continue pulling the stick back for a gentle flare. Try to make a 3-point landing to avoid a bounce. Use careful Z or X rudder commands to roll down the center of the runway. Do not use the wheel brakes unless you have to. Set throttle to idle power at 1000 RPM. Continue to roll to the next available taxiway to the right. Press and hold left control plus C to open the canopy.
Actually, on my keyboard binding, it's left shift C to open the canopy, just so you guys know.
Slow down and take the taxiway to the right. Turn left and park in one of the parking spaces. We'll now shut down the aircraft. Let's first set the parking brake. Note that in cool weather you should give the brakes time to cool prior to setting the parking brake. Pull and hold the parking brake handle by clicking on it and holding the mouse button down. Continue to hold the parking brake handle and press the wheel brakes down by holding down the W key. Now release the wheel brakes by releasing the W key. Release the parking brake handle to set the parking brake. Set propeller RPM to full increase with the page up key and idle the engine at 1,500 RPM. Turn off the fuel booster pumps by setting the fuel booster switch to off. Open the fuel and coolant radiator flap doors by holding the switch in the open position. Then set the switches to off. Set the trim tabs to neutral. Raise the flaps by dragging the flaps control handle up or pressing left shift plus F5 times. Set the fuel mixture to idle cutoff to shut down the engine. Turn off the magnetos by setting the ignition switch to off. Turn off the fuel shutoff valve. Turn off the pitot heat, generator cutoff, and battery cutoff switches on the electrical control panel. Turn off all cockpit and external lights that may be on. Pull the landing gear emergency release handle to release hydraulic pressure. Lock the controls. Left-click on the latch to lock the controls in a stick-forward position for towing, or right-click on the latch to lock the stick in the neutral position with the tail wheel locked. This concludes the landing lesson. Nice job!